Kia ora, good evening. When last in the region for the official opening of Stadium Southland, Prime Minister John Key indicated there may be prime ministerial funds available to help cover the stadium funding shortfall. Mr Key challenged Southlanders to rattle the cash can and see what could be raised locally. Today he returned with a promise of $2 million.
What a great response from the people of Southland, $1.3 million, and that left you $3.7 million to go, and a lot of work from Sarah Downey and managed to convince Bill English, so we found another $2 million that leaves you with $1.3 million to find, $1.7 million to find, and look, I'm sure that will come from a variety of different sources. It's important that the stadium's debt-free. That'll be a burden off the ratepayers, but what a magnificent facility. It's being used all the time. It's a very happy and great place, and I think it's just a great asset to the local community.
You've seen it in action now. It's very much a living building, isn't it?
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's hosting a wide range of events, and you can just see, the joy from the girls, and they're playing the netball. It's this great atmosphere. They can play irrelevant of the weather conditions. This is a facility you can be absolutely proud of. It's it's top rate, and people of Southland are going to get a lot of joy from this facility over the years.
How hard was it to decide what value to put to decide on that $2 million?
Yeah, I mean, historically, there hasn't been a lot of central government support for these kinds of facilities. We generally try and leave it to the local community, and I mean, our rationale for doing it, I mean, some people will say obviously it's politics, but actually it was really a bit more around the fact that there'd been a lot more cost here than they originally thought, actually through no fault of anyone really.
Christchurch.
And you did Christchurch. So look, in the end, we managed to find a little bit of cash. I've had a fund which I'm able to use, and so there was a couple of $1 million left in it, so we want to put towards this.
$2 million, it's not bad.
No, it's very exciting, and it's another step forward to our goal. Obviously, like all Southlanders, we'd just love to be debt-free, but thanks very much to John Key and to Sarah Downey for being here today, and the $2 million certainly goes a long way. We had, I think, 1.3 with the public fundraiser with Rattle the Tin, and we've got a back bowl in. We've got some further negotiations going on to find that extra mil.
So that's $1 million required from now with that $2 million?
In round figures, yes it is. It would be nice to get that, and then we don't have to service debt, and we don't have to service interest on debt, which is always quite possible, but it's not our preferred option.
What's the plan from here to get that extra money, and in what time frame?
Well, that's a good question. As I said, we do have a back bowl, and we've been talking to different corporates about some ongoing discussions, really, when we talked about the naming rights, and that hasn't been put to bed, so those negotiations are being renewed, and basically watch this space with our fingers crossed.
If re-elected, a national-led government is promising to spend $100 million over a decade to buy and retire selected areas of farmland next to important waterways to create an environmental buffer. The announcement came today following the Prime Minister's John Key's visit to Waituna Lagoon in Southland. Collaboration with farmers, communities and water users are all mooted in this latest election promise. National's Environment spokesperson Amy Adams says the $100 million freshwater fund will give councils another option to help manage fresh water by enabling sensitive areas to be retired for environmental purposes. National will also introduce a mandatory requirement to exclude cattle from waterways by July 2017. Overnight, dairy prices have continued their decline, down 6% on 2 weeks ago, sparking speculation farmers will have to lower revenue expectations.
Prices for New Zealand's largest export have slumped 42% at the global dairy trade auction since this time last year. The dramatic decline causing Fonterra Cooperative Group to slash its forecast farmgate milk payout for 2015 to $6 a kilogram of milk solids, down from the initial expected $7 a kilogram. Now the figure may be set to decline again to around $5.50 per kilogram. The latest ANZ commodity report said the market appeared to be struggling to digest the seasonal lift in New Zealand supply, and the recent Russian sanctions on European dairy products look to be flowing through in full force. The effect of the Russian bans was showing up in skim milk powder prices, which have dropped by 26% since sanctions were announced.
The practice of using old vehicle tyres to weigh down silage covers has been identified as a waste stream, but Federated Farmers want to protect the practice. A government discussion document lists farm plastics, agri-chemicals, electrical equipment and refrigerant gases as waste streams that need safe disposal methods established. Although Federated Farmers supported a product stewardship scheme, they cite lack of disposal options for non-biodegradable waste in rural areas, time and transport costs for delivering waste to suitable sites as impractical. Federated Farmers also say it's essential the reuse of tyres as silage waits on farms be protected rather than encouraging plastic-wrapped baleage.
Tyres have been historically a big use for weighing down silage pits, and basically because they're pretty good at it and they're cheap and they do a great job, and it's pretty frustrating to think that we could lose our ability to do that. A few old tyres around a silage pit stacked up nicely look fine, and they last a long time. People will, if they can't use pit silage, they'll go and put more grass into baleage, which has more use of plastic, and then you've got to get rid of that, recycle that plastic and do something with it.
And that's using more energy and resources to get it to that point.
Absolutely, yeah. So the cheapest, the most environmentally friendly thing to conserve feed is put a silage heap down and cover it with a plastic film, and then put tyres on the top to hold it down. It's quite environmentally friendly.
It seems like a reasonable use for recycling tyres too.
Absolutely.
How would Federated Farmers feel if they were being forced to not be able to use these in the future?
Well, I think farmers will be pretty frustrated if that was the case, and in fact, holding a silage pit, silage covered down, is really important because you keep the air out of it, and we'll have probably more spoilage, and there'll be other aspects of that, maybe putting dirt on and that, but that's just, you don't have the ability to actually to reuse the cover again, where silage tyres you can take them off and then reuse the cover if you're careful. So that actually is a saving not only to the farmer but to the environment.
Stay with us after the break. Southern road safety is in the spotlight, plus the 18 official New Southlanders. Welcome back. Once again this year, Mayor Tim Shadbolt was called upon to officiate over the presentation of New Zealand citizenship certificates. What was once a rare event has now become almost commonplace as the city gains an international reputation as a great place to live and work. This morning, 18 new citizens took either an oath of affirmation or commitments to their new country, New Zealand. There was a wide range of nationalities becoming Kiwis. Countries of origin included South Africa, Canada, Russia, the Philippines, Fiji, Britain, Chile and Egypt. 70 participants connected to the road transport sector are working together in Invercargill to try a new collaborative approach to make Southland's roads safer. Over 2 days, representatives from police, local engineering consultants, contractors, ACC, Fonterra, council planners, engineers, councillors and executive members will discuss road safety and the implementation of safer systems on the region's roads.
The safe system is all about accepting that people make mistakes and that people are vulnerable, but that they shouldn't die or have a serious injury as a result of that mistake. So it's basically bringing everyone into the road safety conversation and saying what can we do differently in all of the different parts of the system to deal with those mistakes or the errors, if you like, and reduce the level of trauma on our roads. We're making great progress in New Zealand. The road toll is definitely coming down and we want to continue that. But what we've realised is that just working on the issues that we've worked on in the past isn't going to be enough. We actually need to work a lot more on a couple of key issues. One of those is actually speed and the speed we all travel at. It's not because speed always causes crashes, but it's because it always influences the outcome of a crash. So some of what we're talking about today is how we can actually manage speed so that it doesn't have the serious impacts it tends to have. Other things we're talking about is how we can work in different parts of the system to improve outcomes. So where we look at, say, an alcohol-related crash, we now look at what else could we have done in the whole system to have made that crash survivable. Could the vehicle have had an interlock, for example, so that if the person driving it was a recidivist, they couldn't actually have got in and even turned the ignition on? Or perhaps if it was a very busy road, should that road actually have had a median barrier? So if in fact that person was a bit drunk and they veered off into the other lane, they actually wouldn't kill or harm someone coming the other way. So we're trying to look a lot more broadly than we have done in the past at road safety, and look at problems in one part of the system and how we can fix them in another.
Can we set goals? Where would you like to see the fatality rate in, say, 10 years?
Personally, I'd love to see it at zero, but I truly think New Zealand can strive to be much more like international safe system countries. They have road tolls about half of ours. So in 10 years, I think we can genuinely be at that 120, 130 mark. Still far too many, but much better than we have now.
Well, the need for a two-day workshop is actually to get you the exposure to all the combined resources and people that we have here participating. So actually give you an exposure from the police, from other contractors, from other operators, from people driving vehicles like Fonterra and so forth that go through this every day. Feedback from them is actually quite important, quite critical, to get a full picture, a full spectrum of what those issues are, what are the concerns that they have, where we can improve on it and so forth. And we think this is really great. This is the first for Southland, and we have a real focus actually to make a change for Southland. So it's not just individuals, it's actually a collective, and that collective can be very powerful as far as getting things changed or getting things in a different lens and a different view.
So it's about bringing the parties together
Bring
first
them all
and foremost.
together. Yeah, so that's really key, and that was really informational. I think that exchange, the knowledge each group has in its own individual silo, and now we can actually start breaking down silos and exchanging ideas and information. So it's not just the police off on their own, and they're actually now coming back to actually engaging us, which on their own volition, which is fantastic, as well as council welcoming them and actually being part of that. So it's actually creating a new community of focus on safety, which is really good.
A series of studies by Otago University from 2008 have been revisited to examine the relationship between tobacco promotion in retail stores and smoking. Of the 20 studies reviewed, 9 specifically examined children and youth, and each found the more exposure young people had to tobacco advertising in stores, the more likely they were to smoke. The evidence supports government's view to be a smoke-free nation by 2025. However, other approaches may also be needed to meet the deadline, according to Otago University's Professor Tony Blakely. Government has legislated an annual 10% increases in tobacco excise tax until 2016. This coupled with quitline and cessation supporters hope to reduce adult smoking from 15.1% in 2013 to about 8.7%. Professor Blakely says even if tobacco excise tax were to increase by 20% annually, it won't be enough to reach the Smoke-Free New Zealand goal by 2025. Next on sport, we continue our profiles with new Southland Stag players tonight. Local lock Craig Smith, that's after the weather next. From the news team, good night.